I don't know how many of you out there do or inspect manufactured homes or even want to inspect manufactured homes. They need to be inspected. I have frequent calls out here, especially in the outerlying areas of the Denver area. I go out as far as even 86 miles out here to inspect these things. And right now, I'm kind of hired on with an engineering firm in South Carolina to do this. So that's where I come up with all of this. And well, I don't come up with all, but there's a standard that they have that I have to abide by. And it's pretty much the industry standard, I believe. So, but anyway, just to let you know who I am, I'm not just walked up the street or anything, but actually my bio and background, I'm a member of RMC ASHI since February of 94. I'm a Navy veteran. I have a BS degree in mechanical engineering. I was a physical science technician with the Department of the Army at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal in Denver. Quality engineer, storage technology in Louisville. A project engineer, quality assurance at Ball Aerospace. Worked on several satellite programs. Quality test engineer at Microlithics, which is a subsidiary of Coors Beer, Golden. And I've been a home inspector since December of '93. I'm a published author. I wrote a book called Useful Tenant Tips. It was published in March of this year. I'm included in the Marquee Who's Who in American Businesses in 25-26 this year. I was pretty proud of that. And I'm a certified member of NRPP and licensed with DORA out here in Colorado for radon testing, and a member of ARST, associate member of DMAR, which is Denver Metro Association of Realtors, and a member of BNI, which is Business Network International, which is the best form of advertising I've ever done, and American Legion. And then what pertains to this presentation is I've been performing foundation inspections on manufactured homes for Heyman Engineering in Charlotte, North Carolina for over 18 years. So they rely on me out here in Colorado to go out and do the engineering for them and give them a report to determine if there is any needs for any more anchoring or support systems for these homes. On that. So what I do is identify the type and condition of the support and anchoring systems. I verify the removal of the chassis components, the wheels, tires, axles, leaf springs, and toe frames. Measure the distance or height from grade to the chassis rails, because that could be very important. Skirting, the type of overhaul condition. Sorry about that. Drainage. And then a HUD tag verification, which is also used for traceability. And then my overall opinion on the condition of the way the home was placed on the site. And that's a very big deal out here because I see all kinds of things and that you will see as well here shortly. So, okay. And there's a challenge to these, definitely. There's two types of manufactured homes. There's modular, which is transported to the site and placed or assembled on a CMU or a concrete foundation. These could be either a single, double, or even a triple wide home. And I inspected my first triple wide modular home last week, which was kind of a treat to do. And then mobile homes, these have tires, wheels, leaf springs, and axles and toe frames, and they're hauled over the road to the site and manufactured as a single, double, or triple wide home and are assembled at the site. I've inspected only 4 of these triple wide homes in my illustrious career doing this for 31 years. So 18 with Heyman Engineering. And then what is the compliance certificate and HUD numbers? Compliance certificate is the manufacturer's certification that the home complies with the HUD standards and includes the HUD numbers along with the information, the appliances that were included with the home originally. This document could be located in the kitchen cabinets, laundry area, bedroom closet, could be located anywhere depending upon who manufactures the home. The HUD tagger numbers are serial numbers basically of each unit. They identify where the home was manufactured, and the tags are originally placed on the exterior of their home, and they must be consecutive. That's very important. Those numbers must be consecutive, and and it shows also on that certificate as well. So,
So Jim,
yeah, go ahead.
Jim, we got a question about I think if you go back to your explanation of the difference between modular and mobile, um, the I mean, when I think of a modular home, I'm thinking of something that looks like a stick-built home. It was just built in a factory and hauled there on a truck, and maybe the two halves married together, probably along a center hallway or something. And then a mobile home, I'm thinking like trailer. Am I missing something?
Well, actually, the difference between they're both built at a factory, but the mobile home has the leaf springs, tires, wheels, and axles. They can actually be towed. I'll be explaining it on this next slide here. But the modular homes are actually they're piggybacked off a truck. They don't roll over the road like a mobile home does. On that, and actually, the mobile homes have chassis underneath of them. The modular homes have framing. There's a whole, and you'll see the differences here as I go through these slides. So yeah, those are craned and they're put right on the foundations. They're designed for actual foundations and not just like support jacks or columns or anything like that. So, but you'll see here in a minute when I get to that, you'll see the differences there.
So if we go to the
Okay.
tags you were talking about, what happens when people remove those tags?
Well, that's the important of the certificate, the compliance certificate, because it'll have the numbers right on there. Okay, you can see right there that I've got this, the one that's up right now. From Gurdon Industries shows NEB for Nebraska 053337 and 338. So this is a double wide mobile home. All right. And there's the appliances that came with it. So that's another reason why I matched the tags up with this compliance certificate to make sure they're married up, because I have seen counterfeit tags being made for some of these out here. I don't know how they do that or why they do that. You lose all traceability otherwise. There used to be on the tow frames too, but the tow frames are typically removed from the site, and so you can't trace it through that either. So, but I should cover that question pretty much on some of these slides. Okay. Here's another compliance certificate from another manufacturer. You can see the data manufacturer on it and then the numbers, and it was in Nebraska as well. So, okay. Here's what the typical tag looks like when they're on there. They've got the numbers. Here's another one. That's from Arizona there. Okay. And if you notice the material that's being put on, that's T111 plywood, or no, I mean T111 hardwood or hardboard composite siding. So, okay, now how manufactured homes are different. They're built in a factory. Um, okay. And they're transported to the site. The crawl space is where you'll spend a fair amount of time, and it's the primary focus of this presentation because a lot of people don't know what's going on underneath, and you should if you're going to inspect these things. There could be up to 3 units that make up the home, as I mentioned earlier. The point of attachment that transforms each unit or section into a home is referred to as the marriage wall. And then each individual unit or section will have a HUD number, as we mentioned before, and the compliance certificate will list all these numbers, which is proof the home is compliant with the HUD requirements. And then how do I inspect this type of home? Well, the interior, roof, site, and grounds are really not much different from inspecting a regular home. Therefore, I'm not going to be spending any time on those areas unless anyone has any special questions or anything. Okay. However, I will mention that the water heater and the furnace must be designed for manufacturers' homes, and there are no exceptions for this. Therefore, look at the data label. There should be designed for manufactured homes on there. If there's no data label at all, or if the label has been removed, or I should say, if there's no label or the label has been removed, call it out. Say you can't verify that these are designed for mobile homes, especially the water heater. Now, the furnace is pretty much easy because Coleman makes those, and they're really totally different from a regular furnace that you'll see.
Hey, Jim, somebody's
Uh,
asking to look at the last slide. Can you just back up your slide for a second?
which one? Well, how far back?
I think that's the one he's looking for there.
I can't see if somebody's got a note or a comment or something. What was the question then?
There wasn't a question. He just asked if you go back briefly to that.
Oh, okay.
So I
All
think
right.
I think we're good.
Okay.
So those
All right.
certificates you're talking about, I used to find those, inside the kitchen cabinet.
Yeah, the CFCs, yeah. That's typically where they're located, but people don't know where they are. They tear them off of there and they lose those, and I
Or they
can't,
remodel the kitchen.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, if they change out the cabinetry and stuff, yeah, they sure will. The water heater may be accessible from an access door located on the exterior of the home or behind a removable panel in a bedroom, bathroom, or hallway. And it will not have a typical draft hood as it has a direct vent system for safer operation in these homes. The furnace disconnect and gas shutoff will be behind the front grill, and the burners can be viewed through a sight glass, but are completely enclosed within the unit. The return air is provided through the grill at the front of the appliance where the filters are located. The ducting underneath the double or triple wide will be flexible and they'll connect to the units. It makes it really difficult sometimes to maneuver down under the crawl space because of that. Because they look throughout these things and they're laying right on the ground. And that's when mice love them because they'll go in there and they'll make a home in there. Information on the exterior. The typical original siding material will either be T111 composite paneling or vinyl. But over the years, the siding may have been replaced, and there goes the HUD tags, either covered up or lost. If the HUD tags have survived, they will be typically located at the rear of the home. There should be one tag for a single, two for a double, and three for a triple wide. And if you can, locate that compliance certificate. That's the only way you can match those tag numbers up with this on the certificate. If they don't match, be sure to report that and also report you cannot locate the certificate as well. Because sometimes they'll need that for their loan application, things like that, to have proof that that's the house that they're actually buying. And technically, any additions, deck, porches, or carport, roofs, etc., should have permits just like any other improvements. The electric meter and disconnect, or the electric meter disconnect, are typically located at a pedestal near the gas meter, somewhere on the lot. They're usually together, and they're usually at the back of the lot to where they back these things up, then they can hook them up easily. This could be a challenge within itself, depending upon how the owner or landlord cared for the home. Sometimes I just see all kinds of stuff, as you will soon see. And you can expect some damaged skirting, deferred maintenance, junked autos, but don't be surprised if you run into a lot of vegetation. That's outside. And then this is under the crawl space. You can't move around when this is like this. And this is very bad to do because these rodents will get into those boxes and they'll start nesting in there. And then when you open them up, guess what? Surprise. Now accessing the crawl space. The entrance to the crawl space will typically be on the outside of the home, but on occasion it may be in a closet of a bedroom, which is very difficult. Those are more difficult because that's where the support systems are, and it's really hard to work around those. But the crawl spaces could be at or below grade, depending upon how the lot is configured. Sometimes they'll just roll these houses on the lot they don't excavate anything, or they'll actually excavate and then they'll roll them on. Then they'll jack them up, and then they'll put the support systems underneath them, and then they'll put the skirting around it. Be sure you have the proper equipment, such as a crawl space ensemble, I call it, which is proper clothing, heavy-duty clothing, boots, knee pads, helmet with a headlamp, respirator, goggles, gloves, floodlight, camera, screwdriver, insect spray, and a 3-foot stick for a pole for clearing the cobwebs, or for use as a defense weapon against rodents, stray animals, snake or two, and possibly a homeless person. I've seen several homeless people living underneath these houses, and it surprised the heck out of me. So you got to be careful of your surroundings. Once you remove the hatch cover, shine a light into the space and get a general idea of what you're getting yourself into, but also to determine if it's safe for you to proceed. And I can't stress this enough. If you're a big person, you probably will not be able to inspect many of these crawl spaces, especially if you have all that crawl space ensemble on, because it adds bulk to you. Types of crawl spaces, as I mentioned earlier, at grade or below grade. There does not seem to be any standard to when it comes to the crawl spaces underneath these homes, as the height from grade to the bottom of the chassis rail can range anywhere from 0 clearance to more than 3 feet. There's no thought or proper effective drainage for the location of the main water shutoff valve or any of that stuff on many of these, especially on these trailer parks. They just make a space for them and then hope for the best. Don't expect to move about very easily through the area. If you actually get to crawl, consider it a bonus. However, for a double or triple wide home, the space under the marriage wall is rather generous, but at times the ducting, drain waste piping, center supports may block your way. These areas are usually littered with anything and everything, so beware of your surroundings. Now, this is kind of a case study here that I'm going to show you. This happens to be up in Fort Collins, which is about 60 miles north of where I'm at. That to the right there, I don't know if you can see my pointer here. That's a single wide home right there. This is the addition over here to the left. When I got underneath of there, okay, here's another picture of the addition. But when I got underneath of there, this is what I found. It's really difficult to move around in there. Those are styrofoam panels that they're using for heat, but it's not doing anything. As you can see, there's not sealed or anything, not even put in there properly. But you can see what some of this stuff comes up to be. I mean, you can see the insulation falling out of the ceiling there, from underneath the unit there, and that red arrow there is pointing to a brick wall, but there's no framing around it to support it. So they've just got the brick piled up there for whatever reason. And then there's one of the support straps there. That's a chassis rail right there on this. Right here's the chassis rail right here. It's wrapped around that chassis and is going to an anchor head here. There'll be plenty more of that, but you can see the tires in the back here in the background. That should not be. Now this is a metal. You can see how rusted it's really has moisture underneath these crawl spaces. So you can see the framing on that because this is the support here for the axle brackets and everything here on that. And so, but you can see how rusted that is. Now this area here, I couldn't even get into that area because this is like 8 inches height. I could not squeeze underneath of there with my helmet and all that stuff on. And this is, I mean, you can see that nobody cares about how it looks underneath there if you even have to go in there for maintenance. The insulation up here has been installed backwards. That's craft-faced insulation. That paper should not be exposed. Actually, it's the wrong type of insulation for this home anyway. This is the electrical for it here. Hook up. This is the drain waste piping right here for it. And you can see all the litter and everything that's in there, and styrofoam, and you just can't move around too well in some of these. But yes, you have to report on them and see if you can check the anchor systems and the support systems for them. Now, this is part of the underneath of that addition that I showed you earlier. This is a metal truss right here. You can see how rusted that is. They had to cut it. It looked like they used a truss from something else, and they just placed it in here to actually add support for that floor system of that addition, which is totally wrong.
Jim, how much rust is too much rust?
Well, they're still have their integrity, but when it starts getting really bad to where it's not going to be like the East Coast. We don't have that condition out here because it's really dry out here. But when it gets moisture underneath these crawl spaces, then you just have to keep an eye on it, basically. But I do warn, on this one here, I warn the clients that it's rusting out down there, so keep an eye on it. The integrity hasn't been compromised yet, but you should watch it and get some kind of a contractor on it to clean all this out down there. And actually, an engineer, not so much a structural engineer like we do the house, but an engineering for mobile homes should actually look at this stuff to make sure it's properly supported. And okay, now this is another strap, but it's at an angle, as you can see. It's buried in the dirt as well. That anchor head has to be exposed. It cannot be buried. Then you can see this is cable. That white arrow is pointing to electrical cable, so they don't care how they route that underneath of there. And then this is the port. They've got these wooden shims. They've got the C in here. Hello? Yeah, hello?
No, the wooden shims. I'm sorry. I thought I was muted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they use a lot of wooden shims underneath these homes. And for some, I mean, they don't really plan it out very well, to be honest with you. And then you can see this strap right here is not doing any good. This anchor strap, not doing any good at all. Okay, and then so that was my case study. I just kind of briefly want to show you what some of these stuff I get into. But you should be inspecting the skirting, the anchor system, the support system, the drainage, belly band, the utilities, the piers, foundation, the chassis, and the overall conditions, basically. Okay. And then the type of skirting, there's wood frame used with plywood, plastic grids, T111 panels, or corrugated steel. Stone wall, which is a metal frame with the stone-coated panels, metal stone-coated panels on that. And then vinyl. What to inspect? Identify the type of skirting and its overall condition, because a lot of the skirting can be damaged, especially if it's below grade. Wood frame will eventually deteriorate. It implodes if not properly secured and susceptible to wood-destroying pest activity, and it's used below grade. The stone wall, manufactured panels with stone-coated surface with metal framing, is very durable, but the framing will rust and deteriorate over time. Used below grade as well. Vinyl, that's a cheap material. It's really easy to damage. It's just, it doesn't hold up very well at all. And you have to make sure that the plate on that, the sill plate on that one is really anchored down. And a lot of times they don't even do that. This is an example of the corrugated steel with the wood frame on it. There it is again. Now, if you notice the brackets there, they left that in place. Those should be removed as well. There's those brackets that hold that flexible connector there. Those are welded to the chassis, so those aren't removed. But anything else that's bolted to it should be removed. And then here's another strap. This is what's called as a vertical anchor. It's a metal strap. This one's under tension. And then they use that's a typical jack stand that they use that has a mounting plate on it that sits underneath the chassis rail. And here's a wood framed one with the plywood. You can see that angled support there is supporting the bottom of that so it doesn't cave in. And then that's the longitudinal part. That's the length of the home right there. That's why those are so long, because those are the ends of the home right there. And then a lot of times these will start rotting out. So I've got my screwdriver. That's what the screwdriver is for, to check for piers if they're covered by dirt, to make sure there's a pier underneath that jack support. And then also to check the damage that's been done to these sill plates that are on these skirting. And then that's a typical hatch, exterior hatch to the crawl space, and that's the stone coat. There it is again, a different manufacturer. There's the inside of that skirting. It's a metal panel with that stone coat on the outside. But these are actually put on footers, concrete footers, or they should be anyway. And you can see that rebar there that's actually anchoring it down to the footer.
So how would you know how many anchors are required?
Well, you can't. You don't know. Typically, it's like every 4 feet, typically, but not always. It's not. It's one of those just given standards, and typically they do them towards the ends, the corners like that, and then they'll spread those out. It depends on the length of the house as well, because they can go up to 78 feet. These things, they're long, they're huge. Some of these crawl spaces are massive, especially if it's a triple wide, and you have a triple wide 78 feet long. I mean that's long.
So they put footings. They put footings under those piers.
Yeah, dirt's covering it right now on this. But yeah, there's a footer underneath of that. That's what it's anchored to.
Is that required?
Yeah. In most places it is out here. Depends upon where you're at, but I've seen them just in dirt. But they do have to be anchored. That's the method of anchoring for that metal system. Okay, and then the vinyl siding. Now this is done above grade. Okay, so if you look real close, you'll see this. There's a seam there, and there's a seam right there. There's 4 panels wide here, or 4 sections. That panel can be removed. That's how you get into the crawl space. So it's kind of a crapshoot on where you're entering these crawl spaces at, because there could be a bunch of stuff right in the middle. So you have to put the panel back in, move to a different spot, pull it up and then get in there. And sometimes you have to pull up 2 or 3 of these things to even get around the perimeter of the home, because you can't move from one spot to another under the home. And then this is what you don't want to see. These should have been removed. So whoever installed this on the site, they did a horrible job at it. And I guess nobody checks them out. Like the city, county inspectors of them, they don't care. At least out here, I don't see, the only thing I see that's consistent is their inconsistency. That's the only thing that I see. But you can see it's, what's that?
I'm saying that those vinyl panels are actually pretty easy to move, right? You just that upper flange, you just lift that up, and then the panel just slides up, right?
Yeah, it pops out, but it's a little bit difficult to reline those up again when you're putting back together.
And they also
it's
get
easy,
brittle.
easy to break, huh?
They break real easy when it's cold.
Yeah, they get pretty brittle. So you can snap those off of there or break them when it gets really cold. But that's what you don't want to do. Now here you can see another one that the leaf spring has been detached from the bracket, but everything's still there. So you cannot get in underneath this from here because the axle bracket or the axles are in the way. And if you want to take note on that, there's a bucket right there. So this next photo shows the same bucket, but look what's behind it. All of this, you can't get anywhere back there at all. And these tires have been here a while because look at this. They're in the mud now, or in the dirt. It's muddy there, and they just sank. So what that does is it puts a heck of a lot of pressure on those columns. And if those are not on really spread out piers, they'll go down with the tires. I mean, I've seen it happen. Up to 30%. I did one up in Fort Morgan, which is up the northeastern Colorado here, that had 30% of their support system was not doing any good at all. It had a flood down there, and it just wiped them out. And 30% of that support system wasn't doing any good.
But you're supposed to remove those wheels, right?
Oh yeah, everything. The wheels, the axles, tires, leaf springs. Yeah, everything's supposed to be removed and stored off site or discarded.
So
Yeah.
So what do they do when they're going to move it again?
Well, that's why they purge them, because if they're not guaranteed to be purged, then they can't be. What's that? They got a special license for that, to where a special, not license. I'm sorry, a special loan for that, or mortgage for that. So if they are purged, which we'll get to later on towards the end of the program here, I'll explain what purging means. But yeah, these can still be moved. And they don't want, a lot of the mortgage companies don't want that. So if they find this out, then they're probably not going to put a mortgage on it. Okay, now there's terms laterally, longitudinally, and vertically. And what that means in accordance with the chassis, means laterally means where the anchor strap or cable is placed perpendicular to the chassis rail. In other words, so it's coming in at an angle, at a 90-degree angle. Longitudinal is where the anchor strap, cable, or rebar is placed in line or in the same axis with the chassis rail. And then what does vertically mean? That means where the cable, strap, or rebar is directly under the point of attachment under the chassis rail. And the anchor head is just that. What it does is secures the strap at grade or in concrete pier. And however, the anchor head should be at ground level. You'll see some here that are not. And the tensioner, that's the device that tightens everything all up. And then the anchoring systems types: steel cables, metal straps, proprietary metal bar systems, proprietary metal strap systems, rebar. And then identifying the type of anchoring systems. And it may not be possible to inspect every anchor under the home due to the conditions of the crawl space, as you've seen already. And you'll see more too. The steel cables are wrapped around the chassis rail and secured in a concrete pier. These cables should not be frayed or damaged and should be under tension. The steel straps, these are 2-inch straps. They're 2-inch wide straps, and they're secured to the chassis rail with a hook-type bracket at either the top or bottom of the rail. The other end of the strap is attached to the anchor head tensioner. These should be under tension typically at an angle of 45 to 60 degrees, which means they're installed laterally. And these two anchoring system methods are symmetrical, which means there are an equal number of anchors spaced evenly along each outer chassis rail. And the inner rails may or may not have the same configuration. They don't have to be, but they should have something. But typically you're around the perimeter of the house. The proprietary metal bar systems. These are steel 2-inch square bars that are attached to the chassis rails and anchored in concrete under the outer rail. One bar is secured longitudinally to the outer rail by a clamp, and the second bar is attached laterally to the opposite rail with another clamp. And then for those, you check for loose, missing, rusted hardware at the anchor head and chassis clamps. These are placed at opposite corners of the home or under the marriage wall at opposite ends, which means that if you're looking at the house from the street, let's say, and that's the toe frame end of it, which it would be, it's at the left front and it would be at the right rear. Those are the only two places that they go. And then they may have additional anchoring system, but those are, when they have these metal bar systems, they usually just use that system. And then the proprietary metal strap system is similar, but steel plates are placed under the supports, which are either CMUs or adjustable jack stands. The steel straps are wrapped around the chassis rails in an X configuration, and in both sides of the plates are used for anchoring. The weight of the home is the method of anchoring. Now that is bizarre to me. So the home itself, the weight of that home is what anchors it down to the ground. It's not anchored to the ground. So you look for broken or loose straps, loose hardware, and deterioration. These are placed at the front and rear of the home under the marriage wall and maybe have a center location as well. So these are strictly down the center line, or two center lines if you got a triple wide, if they choose to elect this type of a system. The rebar is embedded into the concrete pier and welded to the chassis rail above it. The welds could be on one or both sides of the rebar. It doesn't matter as long as it's welded. It's also used for anchoring the cable system as well. This anchoring method is the same as the steel cables and straps. So in other words, it's got to be symmetrical, just like those are. Now here's a steel cable, and you can see where the green arrow is the rebar that's embedded into the concrete pier that shows there. And that cable is looped underneath that rebar, and then there's clamps that clamp that together. Now there's another picture of this. I'll show you the clamps. But this is actually wrapped around the braces, the cross braces, and not the chassis rail. So this is totally wrong. Now there's an overview of it, as you can see, and you can see the two clamps in the middle there in the center. All right, but that is really not under tension. It looks like it is, but it isn't. I could move it. And then over here to the left is an anchor strap, but it's not doing anything at all.
Yeah, when I go under, I hit the straps or whatever's there with my flashlight, and they should go clang.
Yeah, because I try to move them if I can reach them. Sometimes there's like broken glass or whatever that's in my way that I can't reach every one of them. But yeah, it's a challenge. But you can see how rusted that steel, that corrugated steel skirting is. Yeah, so they rust out.
Now,
So that's a no-no.
do you use the same safety protocols that I use in crawl spaces? Like if the ground is wet and I see wires hanging, I'm done.
Yeah, you'll see that. Yeah, I tell that later on. But yes, yes, I do. I just don't go cart wash in there. I look everywhere first before I even enter. So, okay, now this is the rebar. You can see the white arrow is the chassis rail. The blue arrow is the belly band. And then the yellow arrow is the rebar that's welded to the chassis rail. And then this is coming out of the pier. I verified, I looked through that little slot right there, verified that it was actually in a pier, but it was. And then that's the rebar. And then in the background there, you can see that anchor head is way above ground. And that's at the marriage wall too. As you can see, the metal straps are going two different directions. So that's totally wrong there. That's got to be redone. And here, the blue arrow there points to another rebar that's embedded into the pier, concrete pier, and then there's a bolt that holds that anchor down, or that anchor head. Okay, here's the same one that's a couple photos ago there. You can see that the straps on both sides there, and then the white one is the anchor head, and then the blue one is the tensioner. And then on this one, this is the vertical tie down on this one, or anchoring system. And the anchor head's just right below it. And then they've got that steel jack support there. Okay, now that's where it's anchored to the chassis rail. And then that blue is anchored, that's the tensioner there for that one. It's going up and around on the back side of that rail. Now that white ellipse there, that's the edge of the steel jack support. That is not the strap. The strap is actually, the strap is actually attached up here on the top side of the rail, on the other side. It comes straight down. But that's part of the jack stand. As you can see, the mounting plate is angled up. That way you fit that up tight against there. Then that way that positions that bolt there right underneath the center line. So there's a good, there's the strap right there. That part should be cut off because it's nothing but a detriment. And then there's how it's anchored down to the chassis rail. It's just an angle bracket there.
On that one, I'll ask, isn't that a bit of a shallow angle for a hold down?
Well, this is the marriage wall. This is the marriage wall. Oh, you mean this one with the white arrow?
With the yellow arrow, the one
Okay,
that goes
yeah.
across the corner of the cinder block.
This is the marriage wall. This is the center line. As you can
Okay.
look over here, way over here, that's the other chassis rail.
Okay.
So this is the inner chassis rail right here. So it will be at a shallower angle.
Okay.
Okay, but it does wrap around there, and there's an anchor head right out of the picture there. But this part of that metal strap is just extra excess, and they didn't cut it off. Okay, and there's another one. That's the metal strap right there, anchor strap, and then that's where it's anchored down. The rebar, and that's where it's anchored down. This is on the long side of the home. This is the longitudinal. And now this one's really, I remember this one like it was yesterday. This one was also up in, well, actually this one's up in Livermore, which is about 30 miles north of Fort Collins. And everything's wrong with this one. This one is, there's no tension on it, so it's not doing absolutely anything. There's the anchor head, but you can see how far up out of the ground it is. But the worrisome thing on this one was these two things. Those are dead rats, dead mice. I found 15 of those underneath this house. I mean, they were everywhere. These dead ones. I saw a bunch of live ones as well, but luckily I had my crawl space ensemble on and my respirator. So, but that's the brown stuff you see. That's all dead mice, dead rats, and stuff. So, and then this is typical here. You've got some damage to the belly band. And then you've got insulation there that's been torn out of there. Cabling, electrical cable, just routed every which way. Bunch of debris. And then there's that open spot again where they had to get into there.
Forgive me for jumping in because I just don't hear anybody else. Belly band or belly fabric.
Well, yeah, it's a belly band, and it's the fabric. Yes, it's the membrane.
Yep.
That actually supports the insulation, the electrical, the plumbing. It hides all that stuff, and for over the road use, for protects it over the road. That's what it is. That's called the belly band.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last time I went through a sort of a course like this, they made a big deal about belly band damage. Because that's
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what you think is a little hole I was told no hole that's not factory is acceptable in a belly band.
That's true. That's why I'm showing all this to you. I mean, I report all this stuff when I'm there, and I recommend it be repaired. But a lot of this stuff is caused from mice. Mice get up there and make families, and stuff like that. And you'll see some insulation. It's actually urine stained, to where they just urinate all over the place, and it adds weight to it. And then they gnaw through this, and then it weakens it out, and then it just collapses. So and actually, if they get rats in there too, that'll even really make it worse.
And once you have the small fuzzy things, you get the long slithery things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But you can see, well, you'll see the yellow area there is pointing to the water line coming in. You can see it's just draped all over the place. And then that blue arrow is pointing to the tape, the heating tape that's supposed to heat that line up in the wintertime. As you can see, it's really effective.
I was about to ask about the water lines because that's where the shutoff is most of the time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep.
And I would sort of recommend, telling somebody mark the piece of skirting that's closest to that, so that when something does go wrong, you don't have to try to figure out where it is.
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't even know where it's at. They don't even want to go down there to find out. So I have to tell them. So now that strap's doing absolutely nothing. Whoop. Okay, now we're getting into the proprietary bar anchor system, and that's one of the lateral bars there. And then you can see where the lateral bar connects into that anchor head, and then there's the longitudinal bar to the left. And then that's the clamp that clamps it to the chassis rail. And then there's the other one there. That's the longitudinal one there. The other one was the lateral. But these are pretty hefty clamps. These are pretty good anchoring systems. And then there's two bolts in the pier on this one, on that. So they anchor everything down right to that center location. And it's actually, this one's designed for two longitudinal ones and one lateral on this one. But the third one's not there. And then there's another one, longitude or latitude one there. And then this is a different type of a lateral system, different manufacturer, but it's basically the same principle. Now, this is the one that gets me, the proprietary strap anchor system. This is where the entire house weights itself down. It's not anchored to the ground at all. So you'll see that blue arrow there. That's the side plate of that anchor. And then the top is where the actual connection is for that strap. The red arrow points to the 4x4 that actually separates it and keeps it from coming together. And then this kind of explains a little more. The white arrows there, the two white arrows, those are under tension. And that's the direction of tension, I should say. And then that yellow arrow there is for the tensioner. That's what tightens that up. And you can see the blue plate again, but you can see that plate is completely underneath that jack stand. Then it comes up, and then it's anchored with the green arrow. That's where the strap's anchored to that. It's just like on the other side. And then it goes to the other side. So that's basically what it looks like. It's an X configuration, and the bottom left over the bottom right on the right side is the anchor or the tension system for the left side, and then the bottom left is for the right side. These are always under the marriage wall when you see this. And you can see that jack stand that's underneath the marriage wall right there too. And you can see how much there's a lot more space underneath of there. And then there's another one of another house, but you can see what a mess this one is. There's cabling going every which way. Now the support system, the types, the concrete columns, these are rare, but considered the most reliable. Wood shims are used to level the home, and there could be anywhere from 20 to 48 of these, depending upon the width, if it's a single, double, or triple wide home, coupled with the length of the home. These columns must be as close to plumb as possible, and the leveling shims should be in contact with the chassis rail. The CMUs are the most popular, but they are the easiest influenced by improper drainage, as they could settle, compromising the support. On occasion, the wood shims will pop out, rendering the column ineffective. The CMUs should be stacked to where the holes are vertical, or if the blocks are solid, they must be placed on the flats and not on the ends or sides. These should be as close to plumb as possible as well. In addition, the CMUs may be placed directly upon the grade or on a concrete pier. The adjustable steel jack stands are very popular. However, some jurisdictions have allowed or still allow these to be placed on plywood or a plastic panel in lieu of a concrete pier, which makes no sense to me. That's so, what's
Hey,
that?
Jim, you got 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I shouldn't have too much longer to go here. But the point of attachment to the chassis mount is flat mounting plate with one end angled up as I showed you earlier. And there's no mechanical means of securing the plate to the rail unless you weld it. Okay, and then when you're looking at these, look for deteriorated, damaged, or deformed legs on the stands. Ensure the mounting plate is in full contact with the rail and the stand is plumb. Okay, steel columns and adjustable. These are mainly used with homes placed on concrete foundations. Note that the support system will be symmetrical, as there would be an equal amount of supports under each chassis rail. So here's a column here. You can see how it spreads out. It's almost like a spread footer. Here's the same thing, but this one, the anchoring system on this house happens to be the rebar. And there's a CMU supports with the wood shims. And these are actually on like 24-inch piers. And those are stacked up kind of high. You can see they're using 2x4s here for shims. This is a no-no. These plates, that's why these mounting plates are designed that way, so they fit snugly underneath the chassis rail. So that's a no-no. And then sometimes you'll see these in dirt, and they're starting to erode. And they're corroding up there, the threads are. Mounting plate, it's corroding up there. You never see one when in dirt like this. I had to use my screwdriver to make sure that it's on a pier. And it was, but it was just covered with dirt. That's definitely a no-no. You never want to see that.
What is that, a brick?
What's that?
Is that a brick on top of that jack stand?
No, those are metal. They're all deteriorating
It's a metal. Okay.
together. Yeah, that's metal. Yeah,
Was metal.
yeah. Now there's the water line. This place was flooded at one time. You can see the water line. I should say one time, several times. And then you can just see the framing on these things. They start corroding. Now there's that plastic stand there too. That's I can never understand why they allow these things to be used like that. That's definitely a no-no. And you don't want to see that either. Now this one's welded, which is okay, but it's still not preferred. Now that one, you can see they welded it, but it's at an angle. It's not even in there properly. Now this is actually on a foundation, a raised perimeter foundation. And so you can see the steel jack support there. There's some more of it right there. Now, this happens to be a modular home here. And you can, some of the columns are welded to the chassis. And then this one is one I did last week. This was up in Fort Collins. And this one, that horizontal bar there, that's supporting the entire house. It's a triple wide. And then the one on top of that, the horizontal one, just at 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock position there, that one is underneath the marriage wall. So that's supporting the marriage wall on this one, but it's all welded. And then there it is welded on the foundation. And drainage, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you can just see some of these, they dig these channels like that. So it's just inviting water to go into them. And then the belly band is a membrane that protects the entire undercarriage. Modular homes may or may not have these barriers, depending upon how they were placed on the site. These are often damaged during transit or will be damaged when placed on the lot. Rodent activity or when utilities are connected to the home. This band appears to be swollen, maybe an indicator of a water leak. So if it feels really tight and all that, it's typically a water leak. And family rodents, I mean, they just get all over the place. As you can see, this is a modular home here. The insulation's fallen out of it. And this is what some of the rodents can do. Along with the dryer vent is also drying, or is venting in there too. So all that dryer vent lint is getting everywhere. Utility connections, I'm not going to say much about this. Sometimes they're nicely done, but other times they're not. Columns, runway piers, because they're poured on site and located on each wheel track and extend the entire length of the home. Concrete block piers, concrete footers. They just dig a hole and pour concrete in it, call it a footer. Concrete slabs, which the entire floor of the crawl space is one large slab. It's a monolithic slab. The chassis rails, frame of the home. Check for physical damage or rust. Chassis rails, secondary support braces. Verify the wheels, tires, and all that have been removed. The axle brackets are welded to the chassis and will remain in place. The support columns will be under the rails only. And you can see there's a toe frame. There's another one. These should have been removed. Few of these homes are placed on regular concrete or concrete block CMU foundations, as we talked about earlier. Steel cable straps or even proprietary systems attached to steel angle brackets bolted to the foundation. The center of the home or marriage wall is typically placed on steel I-beams and supported by adjustable steel columns. Basements are typical. These I'll go kind of run through this since I don't have much time left. They're basically like a walkout basement, like at a regular home, except you're going to have different. If it's finished basement, then you can't tell how it's anchored down or if it's anchored down. So you just got to state that in your report when you do that. And most of the work that I've seen in these basement are horrendous. They're not done professionally usually. Foundations tend to be deeper. I'll kind of run through this. You can actually get under these on the foundations. Here's one. It's a CMU with a spread footer. Oops, here we go. The purge part. When a manufacturing home is purged, it means that the home is permanently attached to the site. In other words, the wheels, tires, leaf springs, axles, and toe frames have been completely removed from the chassis and discarded or stored off site. Plus, the support system is welded or bolted to the chassis. And then this is at the end of it. So just treat it as any inspection as you would as any other, but report what you see, good, bad, or indifferent. And to answer the question that was asked earlier, yes, if I look in there and I see water's pooling, I will not enter that. And I'll take my photos as best I can, and you should be sure that the water will be in there too, so I can justify why I'm not going in there. But I typically go into these crawl spaces. So yeah, that's it.